The baby monitor crackled again, its tiny static a pulse in the quiet mansion. Rosa paused her mop mid-stroke. It was nearly 3 a.m., and the nursery was 3 hallways down, second door on the left, the room no one else touched unless ordered. She turned her head slightly. The cry came again, faint but real. Her fingers tightened on the wooden handle. She waited. 10 seconds. 20. The crying didn't stop. She glanced at the corner clock in the kitchen. The nanny had left hours ago. Samuel had been fed, diapered, bathed. Everything on schedule. Rosa knew because she'd helped, as usual, quietly, in the background, just out of the nanny's spotlight. But this wasn't on anyone's list. With a soft sigh, Rosa dropped the mop back in the bucket. Her knees ached. Her back was stiff from the 12-hour shift. But she didn't hesitate. She padded silently down the hallway, her black sneakers whispering against polished marble floors, passing untouched vases, chrome sculptures, and curated emptiness. The nursery door was ajar. She peeked in. There he was. Samuel. 6 months old. Tiny fists waving in the air, his legs kicking beneath a quilted blue blanket that had twisted around him. His face was red, cheeks slick with tears. He wasn't hungry. He wasn't wet. He was just scared. Alone. Rosa didn't ask permission. She stepped inside and gently lifted him from the crib. "It's okay," she whispered, her accent soft and warm. "Shh, don't cry and Toto wandu." She bounced slightly, pacing near the crib, the only light coming from the dim night lamp shaped like a star. The baby's cries slowed. He looked up at her, trusting eyes, fluttering lashes. She sang in Swahili. A lullaby her own mother sang in Nairobi before Rosa ever knew what wealth looked like. Before America. Before this mansion. Before Ayana's medicine bills stacked up higher than she could climb. Samuel yawned. Rosa rocked him until his breath slowed. Her knees gave out from exhaustion, and she slowly lowered herself to the floor. Still cradling him. Still singing. There was no rocking chair. The nanny used to bring her own and then took it back when she resigned 2 weeks ago. So Rosa sat. Back against the crib. Legs crossed. Samuel on her chest. Minutes passed. Then hours. And somewhere in that dark, polished room, sleep found her. She didn't hear the footsteps. Didn't hear the door creak open wider. Didn't know someone was watching. "Excuse me." Rosa's eyes shot open. Her spine straightened instantly. Samuel stirred but didn't wake. In the doorway stood Damien Levington. Barefoot. Robed in black silk. Eyes sharp and unreadable. He stared at her like she was a stranger in his house, no, an intruder. "What exactly are you doing?" His tone was measured. I'm sorry, sir," she stammered, gently shifting Samuel off her chest and onto the plush floor mat. "He was crying. I thought I could help." "You thought you could help?" he repeated. "By what? Sleeping with my son?" Her mouth opened, but no words came out. "I should fire you on the spot." Rosa's eyes filled with panic. "No, please, please, Mr. Levington. I only wanted to comfort him. He wouldn't stop crying, and I didn't want to bother you." "That's not your decision to make," he cut in, voice cold as glass. She looked down. "Yes, sir." He didn't move. Didn't blink. Just stared. Then turned his gaze to Samuel, sleeping soundly now on the mat. "Get out." Rosa gently stood, picked up the baby, placed him back in the crib without a sound. Then she gathered her nerves and walked past the man who signed her checks, hoping her knees wouldn't buckle beneath her. She didn't sleep that night. Not in the servant quarters. Not at all. The next morning, she woke before sunrise. Tied her braids tighter. Pressed her uniform with care. No one spoke to her as she scrubbed the tiles in silence. By noon, whispers circled. "I heard she was in the nursery last night. With the baby. On the floor. That's not even her job. She's overstepping. She's getting fired. Just watch." Rosa kept her eyes on the mop. Her mind on Iona. On the bills. On the promise she made to never let anything get in the way of her daughter's future. She didn't cry. Not once. But somewhere deep inside, the humiliation grew teeth. Because no one saw what really happened. They only saw what they wanted to believe. And the man who had the power to defend her had said nothing at all. But what Rosa didn't know was that he hadn't forgotten. And that the security footage from the nursery? It was sitting open on Damien Levington's laptop. Paused at the exact moment she cradled his child like her own. The staff room was unusually quiet. Whispers had replaced laughter, and silence wrapped itself around Rosa like a second skin. Every glance in her direction felt heavier. Every conversation stopped when she entered. She wasn't paranoid. She'd worked in enough households to recognize the smell of judgment in the air. By afternoon, she was assigned to clean the far side of the mansion, deliberately away from the nursery. The other maids kept their distance. They didn't ask questions. They didn't offer comfort. Not when the boss's voice had echoed down the halls the night before. Not when they knew the rules: staff don't cross boundaries. But Rosa didn't need their sympathy. She needed her job. She scrubbed each marble tile with purpose. Wiped each surface as though her hands could erase what happened. Her knees hurt, but she didn't flinch. She'd endured worse. The floor didn't scare her. Silence didn't scare her. But what she couldn't shake was the image of Damien's eyes, wide with disgust, as if she were something dirty. She hadn't meant to overstep. The baby had needed someone. That's all. Rosa had only done what came naturally. She cared. In the distance, footsteps echoed. Then voices. Female. Sharp. "I mean, who does she think she is?" one said. "It's not her baby. She's the help." Another voice laughed. "Damien's going to let her go. Probably already called legal. Can't risk another scandal." Rosa turned away, swallowing hard. Her hands dipped back into the soapy water. Upstairs, behind frosted glass doors, Damien sat in his study. His laptop was open. The security footage played silently. He watched as Rosa entered the nursery the night before. No hesitation. No drama. Just quiet urgency. She picked up Samuel, rocked him gently. She didn't rifle through drawers. She didn't even look around. She just held the baby. Sang to him in some unfamiliar language. Then sat on the floor and became still. Her eyes closed only after Samuel had stopped crying. The footage rolled for nearly an hour. He watched it all. Then he closed the laptop. He didn't know what to do with the knot in his stomach. He didn't trust people easily, especially not the staff. He had built his billion-dollar empire on precision, on logic, on calculated trust. Rosa had always been quiet. Professional. Efficient. But last night, she hadn't followed protocol. She'd entered his son's nursery without permission. She had crossed a line. And yet, Samuel had slept soundly for the first time in days. His fingers tapped the desk. He opened Rosa's personnel file. Nothing unusual. Hired through agency. No infractions. Single mother. Child with medical needs. Consistently praised by supervisors. He exhaled and leaned back. Still, his mind kept returning to the note, left neatly beside Samuel's blanket that morning. Just 3 simple lines, handwritten in careful script. "I'm sorry for overstepping. It won't happen again. Thank you for the opportunity to work in your home. Rosa." No excuses. No defense. Just grace. He rubbed his temples. He didn't like feeling uncertain. But this wasn't about contracts. It was about something else. Later that day, Rosa was called to the East Wing. She walked slowly, heart in her throat. She half expected a termination letter waiting on the polished glass desk. Instead, she was told to stand by outside Damien's study. Inside, she could hear a phone call. "No, we're not replacing her," Damien said into the phone. "No, I don't want a new nanny. Not yet. I need to figure something out first. No, don't call HR. This isn't a disciplinary matter. The door opened. Come in, he said. She stepped in cautiously. He didn't look up right away. Just gestured toward the chair across from him. She sat. He finally spoke. I reviewed the footage, he said, voice flat. She nodded. I know what it looked like to me last night. But what I saw today was different. Her throat tightened. You weren't trying to take advantage. You weren't being careless. No, sir, she whispered. I see that now. Rosa said nothing. She didn't know if this was a warning or something else. Samuel seems comforted by you, he continued. You have a calmness. That's hard to find. I only wanted to help. He was crying. I couldn't ignore it. He nodded. You shouldn't have had to. It's not your job to fill the gaps. I wasn't thinking about that. Just the baby. He finally looked her in the eye. You can go. Keep doing your duties as normal. She stood slowly. Thank you, Mr. Levington. He gave a small nod. As she left, the other staff watched her pass with eyes like glass. No one spoke. No one offered smiles. Only the chef raised an eyebrow. You're still here? He asked dryly. Rosa gave a polite smile. Yes. For now. That evening she took her dinner outside, away from the staff quarters. She sat near the garden, beneath string lights that flickered softly, and took a call from her mother. Ayana's voice came on the line, wheezy but cheerful. Mama, I made a star out of macaroni. Rosa smiled into the dark. That's beautiful, baby. I miss you. Did the rich baby cry again? Ayana asked. Rosa laughed softly. Not tonight. Back inside, Damien stood just outside the nursery, watching his son on the monitor. The baby slept peacefully. No cries. No twisting. Just small, steady breaths. For the first time in days, he didn't feel like a stranger in his own home. But what stayed with him most wasn't the peace. It was the image burned into the back of his mind, a woman in a plain gray uniform, sitting on the cold floor, holding his son like she'd been born to protect him. And he didn't know yet that tomorrow, she'd do something even more unexpected. The night air was still. Thick. The kind of silence that came only when a house full of wealth fell asleep. No footsteps. No dishes. No staff moving between rooms. Just the low hum of recessed lights and the occasional rustle of wind outside the floor-to-ceiling windows. Damien walked barefoot through the hallway, robe loose around his shoulders, a glass of untouched bourbon in hand. He wasn't tired. He hadn't been for days. Something about the footage, about Rosa's letter, about the baby sleeping for the first time in a week, was crawling under his skin. He paused in front of the nursery. Door closed. Monitor still on the table beside it. He didn't open it. Didn't need to. Samuel had been quiet all evening. No outbursts. No fits. But then he noticed something odd. The faintest sliver of light from beneath the nursery door. He frowned. Everyone had retired for the night. He reached for the knob quietly, eased the door open. What he saw made him stop. Rosa was there. Again. Not asleep this time. Not lying on the floor. She stood beside the crib, humming something he didn't recognize, just loud enough to soothe but not wake. Her hand rested lightly on Samuel's back. The baby was curled peacefully against the blanket, chest rising and falling in slow, contented rhythm. Damien didn't step in. Just leaned against the doorframe and watched. Rosa didn't see him. She looked different in that moment, not like a maid, not like an employee. There was no uniform. She changed into a soft cotton tee and loose pants, her braids pulled back into a low knot. There was something maternal about her stance, strong but gentle. Then she reached into her pocket and pulled out a small envelope. He watched her unfold a piece of paper. Handwritten. She read it softly, as though to herself. Then, with great care, she tucked it under Samuel's pillow. She leaned forward, whispered something into the baby's ear, and kissed his forehead. Then she turned to leave, and stopped cold when she saw him. Her eyes widened. Her shoulders tensed. "I'm sorry," she said instantly. "I didn't mean to. I was going to ask what you were doing here again," Damien said slowly. "But I think I already know." She stood frozen. "I told you this wasn't your job." "I know, sir." "Then why are you here?" "Because he still cries," she said. "And I can't listen to it and just walk away." He said nothing. Rosa swallowed. "I don't expect anything. I know the rules. I was already awake. I came in for a minute. I wasn't trying to overstep again." "You left something under the pillow," he said, motioning toward the crib. She hesitated. "It's just a note," she whispered. "For him. He'll never read it, I know. But sometimes kids carry pain even if they don't understand it. I just wanted him to feel loved." Damien stepped in. Walked over to the crib. Reached beneath the pillow. The paper was folded neatly. He opened it and read in silence. "Dear Samuel, you're not alone. Even when the room is dark and no one comes, someone cares. Your smile matters. Your cries matter. And you are worthy of love, not because of who your parents are or what house you were born in, but because you're you. If no one tells you that, I will. With love, Rosa." He looked up. Rosa's eyes were glassy, but her face was still. She didn't flinch. Didn't explain. Just stood there, waiting for whatever would come next. But Damien didn't yell. He folded the paper back into its envelope. "You write to him often?" She shook her head. "Just when I feel like he needs to hear something no one else is saying." He stared at her for a long moment. "You have a child," he said. It wasn't a question. "Yes. A daughter. Ayanna. She's 5. She lives with you?" "With my mother. In Compton. I send everything I make to them." He nodded. "And your daughter, is she loved like this?" "I try," Rosa said. "I work long hours, but I try. She's the reason I wake up every day." Damien leaned against the crib, shoulders low, voice quieter now. "I don't know how to be a father," he admitted. "Not really. My own father was a ghost. My son, he's like a stranger to me." Rosa didn't speak. She let the silence settle. "Sometimes," he continued, "I wonder if bringing him into this world was selfish. Brielle's barely here. I'm working constantly. He's being raised by monitors and schedules. He doesn't need perfection," she said. "He needs presence." He looked at her. "I'm not asking for your advice," he said, but the edge was gone from his voice. "I know," she replied gently. "I wasn't giving it. Just truth." He nodded slowly. Then did something unexpected. "Would you be willing to stay?" "Officially. As his caregiver." Rosa blinked. I don't understand." "You clearly know how to calm him. You're gentle. And you're honest. That's rare. But I'm just a maid." "Not anymore," he said. "If you want it, I'll double your salary. Give you your own room. Medical coverage for your daughter. You'd have a say in his routine. His development." She was stunned. Words caught in her throat. "Why me?" she finally asked. Damien didn't answer right away. He glanced at the crib. "Because he smiles in his sleep when you're here. And I don't know what that's worth, but I know it's more than what I've been paying you to mop floors." Rosa's hand trembled slightly at her side. "I'd like to bring my daughter here," she said softly. "If I accept." He nodded. "Of course. Not in the servant quarters. She deserves a real space. She'll have her own room." Rosa closed her eyes, just for a moment. Let the weight of it settle. "Then yes," she whispered. "I accept." Damien nodded once, then turned toward the crib. Together they stood in the quiet room, watching a baby sleep, each wondering how this moment had come from something so simple. A floor. A cry. A choice. Neither of them knew it yet, but by morning, the house would be buzzing. Whispers would turn into headlines. And Rosa's life, along with Damien's, was about to shift into something no one could have predicted. By sunrise, the mansion wasn't quiet anymore. Word had spread like wildfire, though no one could say exactly where it started. Maybe it was the butler who spotted Rosa being escorted to the guest quarters instead of the servant wing. Maybe it was the chef who saw the new crib being assembled beside a child-sized bed in one of the east wing rooms. Or perhaps it was the whisper from security. One of them had overheard Damien Levington himself saying Rosa's name with something that sounded dangerously close to respect. The staff buzzed. "She's staying in the main wing now? No way. That can't be right. I heard he offered her a real contract. Full benefits. Who does that for a maid?" But Rosa didn't hear them. Or if she did, she didn't flinch. She walked through the mansion with the same quiet grace, her shoulders no longer slumped. There was something new in the way she held her head, something firm, dignified, untouched by gossip. At 8 a.m. sharp, she knocked on Damien's study door. Not as a subordinate, not with hesitation, but with purpose. "Come in," he said. She entered with a folder in hand, dressed in a simple blouse and slacks. No apron. No uniform. Her braids were tied neatly behind her head. Her presence was unmistakable. "I've drawn up a suggested routine for Samuel," she said, placing the folder gently on the desk. "If I'm going to be his full-time caregiver, I'd like to approach it the right way." Damien glanced at the folder, then up at her. "You're efficient. I'm a mother." He smiled faintly. "That's becoming clear." She turned to leave, but paused. "My daughter, she's arriving this afternoon with my mother. I'd like to personally introduce her to the household. Not as a guest. As a resident." "Done," Damien said. "I'll have the family car pick them up." Rosa nodded once and walked out. The housekeeper, who had once smirked when Rosa passed, now stared in confusion. Even the younger staff kept their voices low when she entered a room. They didn't know what to make of it. By noon, something else shifted. The front gate buzzed. Cameras turned. The Levington family car rolled up with Rosa's mother, regal in her silence, and Ayanna, whose curious eyes widened at the sheer size of the estate. She clutched a small stuffed rabbit in one hand and wore shoes a size too small. Rosa ran out to greet them, arms wide. Ayanna squealed with joy, wrapping her arms around her mother's waist. "Welcome home, baby," Rosa whispered into her daughter's hair. Damien watched from the balcony above. He'd only seen Samuel laugh once in weeks, and yet Ayanna's laugh cut through the air like music. It didn't just echo through the marble, it filled something in the house that had always been missing. Later that afternoon, Rosa gave Ayanna a tour. Samuel followed along in Rosa's arms. She showed Ayanna the room they'd be sharing, the window with a view of the garden, and the tiny basket of crayons left quietly on the nightstand by someone unknown. That evening, Damien made a decision. He gathered the staff in the grand dining hall. It was rare, almost unheard of, for him to address them all directly. They stood in two neat lines, unsure what was coming. Rosa stood to the side, holding Ayanna's hand. Damien stepped forward. "This house," he began, "has always run like a machine. Precise. Clean. Professional. But a house isn't a home just because it's big or polished or expensive. It's the people inside it that give it meaning." The room remained silent. "Last week, I misjudged someone. Badly. I saw something I didn't understand, and I reacted without listening. But what I've learned since then is simple. Care can't be trained. Compassion can't be bought." He looked directly at Rosa. "I want to formally announce that Rosa Nyaga is no longer employed as domestic staff. She is now head of child development and care for my son and this household. Her daughter, Ayanna, will live here with her, and any staff caught treating them as anything less than family will answer to me directly." Gasps rippled through the crowd. He wasn't finished. "Furthermore, I'll be donating $50,000 to the children's clinic in Compton that Rosa's daughter depends on, because no child should ever suffer because their parent works for me." Rosa's hand tightened around Iana's. The silence was deep. No one whispered. No one looked away. After a long pause, Damien turned and nodded to Rosa. Would you like to say anything? Rosa looked out at the people who had once judged her. She didn't gloat. She didn't gloat. Her voice was calm. Steady. I know how easy it is to be overlooked, she said softly. To be invisible. To be judged by your title instead of your actions. But every child matters. And love isn't a job, it's a choice. I chose to care, even when no one asked me to. And I'll keep choosing that. For Samuel. For my daughter. For anyone who needs it. Then she simply added, Thank you for seeing me. There was no applause. Just reverent silence. And then, from the end of the hall, the old gardener clapped once. Then again. And slowly, the rest followed. Until the hall echoed with quiet, respectful recognition, not of a promotion, but of a woman whose dignity had demanded it. That night, Damien tucked Samuel into bed himself for the first time. Awkwardly. Gently. The boy didn't cry. He looked at the crib. And beneath the pillow, another note. He opened it. Tonight you were held by your father. Remember that feeling. It's love, even if it's late. Damien folded it carefully and placed it in a box beside the crib, one Rosa had started filling with letters for Samuel to read when he turned 18. The next morning, a headline appeared on a small parenting blog. The Billionaire, the Maid, and the Baby Who Slept Through the Night. By noon, it had gone viral. But Rosa didn't care about that. She was too busy teaching Iana how to plant marigolds in the garden, while Samuel watched from a playpen nearby, giggling at every splash of soil. She had once slept on the floor to offer comfort. Now she walked on marble, but with the same grace. And the home was finally what it had never been before. Whole.